Hey, community groups, it's David McHale, our Connections pastor here. I hope you're well. I think of you often. And I'm just so thrilled that our church has so many people involved in community groups, and there are many of you that are engaged in our church. And I just wanted to give a brief video here about a particular aspect of our vision for community groups. But before I do that, I just would encourage you and affirm that as I meet with your leaders and hear from them, I just hear over and over again about what God is doing in our community groups, and I'm so thankful. And many of you have been trekking through Ray Ortlund's book, The Gospel. And again, I hear about what God is doing and stirring in us as it pertains to gospel culture and the way that the culture of our church should match our convictions about the gospel and Jesus. And we really want to see those qualities grow in us. And as we do, we want as many people to get in on that culture and those convictions as possible. So the question becomes, how do we do that? How do we welcome new people into that kind of a community? And in short, I would say our community groups need to multiply. So I'm going to explain that a little bit, but just as a quick word, I've already talked with your leaders about this concept of multiplication, but I do want to talk directly to you about this. And specifically, I want to talk and consider why multiplication, what is multiplication, and how do we do it as a church. And I know that there may be some hesitancy toward this concept, and I want to address some of those things as well. So why do we multiply? In short, living things that are healthy bear fruit. They grow. They multiply. And consider, for example, a plant. A plant that is healthy grows, and it bears fruit, and those fruit have seeds, and those seeds eventually fall into the ground that then create another plant that then grows up and does the same thing. Or consider a family. A mother and a father come together and they bear fruit in children, and those children grow up and they become husbands and wives and mothers and fathers, and they raise up a new family. And consider even Jesus himself. He raised up the 12 disciples, who then were sent out and planted churches that then raised up new leaders that planted more churches. So multiplication is all over God's creation and even his redemption story. And that is how we would like to see our church grow. And you may have even heard on a bigger scale from our church leaders about this concept of church planting. And we believe that the church is supposed to be a church that plants churches. So that's what we want to do on a macro level, and it's also what we want to do in our community groups, which are microcosms of our broader church. But return with me for a moment to this image of family. So generally, a standard small group is very similar to a marriage, where a marriage is two people in a lifelong, committed, loving relationship. The people don't change. They're the same people, even as they grow and they deepen and develop in their intimacy and in their character. That's what a healthy marriage is. And yet, at the same time, as wonderful as marriage is for the purpose of raising up a family. And families grow, and children leave families to go and start more families. And so I would really love for our groups, even as marriage is so beautiful, to look much more like families. And so what does that mean? What does it mean to multiply? Well, what it doesn't mean, I want to be very clear about what it doesn't mean and what I'm not saying. And what I'm not saying is that our groups would grow and grow to more and more numbers, and then that we would break apart. The grow and break model really feels much more like a divorce. It can be traumatic. It can be painful, and maybe some of you have experienced that. That's not what I'm talking about. The idea that I'm saying, the culture that I want to create and I want to see us create, is a culture in which the expectation is that at any time, one of your group members could be raised up as a leader, sent out to start a new group and welcome in new group members into that community. And that is a joy. Consider a son or a daughter that is growing and eventually starts their own family. It's a win. It's a beautiful thing, right? Even as it's painful maybe for the parents. It's a big win and a small loss, and that little bit of loss is worth it because more and more people get to enjoy and grow in a community of grace. So how do we multiply? In short, we multiply by raising up leaders. We need leaders to start new groups. And ideally, these leaders are raised up within the context of an existing community group. And leadership is a gift. It's a beautiful thing. It's an invitation to participate with the Lord and His church in discipling His people. So we need men and women who desire to respond to that call, to lead and aid us in shepherding our church and welcoming new people into the fold, so to speak. And so I see two main ways that this can happen. One is a new leader is raised up in your group and they are sent out to go start a new group. Another way that may be easier is a new leader is raised up and they assume responsibility for your existing group, and your current leader then goes and is sent out and starts a new group. And they're hearing this and responding to this call. And that process is inevitably going to take time. This culture is going to take time to cultivate. And please hear me, I am not going to stiff arm or try and coerce any of your groups to abide by this vision. This is an invitation, not a command. But I hope that you do consider this call. Are you a leader? Even more, are the people around you affirming your gifts of leadership, godly character? Do people follow you? Do people respond to your initiation in a group? Do they listen to you? Do they respect you? Do you have the ability to lead a dialogue or ask thoughtful questions or even teach? And maybe you as a leader, your current leader has already invited you to lead group meetings. And maybe you would like to lead, but you may not be ready. And we may discern together the need to apprentice with your current leader. And in that process, discern whether you're ready to be a leader. And maybe you're ready to lead, but we don't quite need you to lead yet. And we would love to have you on deck for when we do. And so all in all, I know this is difficult and new, but I do think it's for the best. And so thank you for hearing me, and I pray that you would consider these things. And so in your community groups, even now, I invite you to take a few minutes and consider these things. Consider what it means for our church to be a multiplying church and for you to be a part of it. Consider these questions. How does this concept of multiplication sit with you? How does it challenge your understanding of community groups? If others affirmed you as a leader and asked you to consider leading, how would you respond? And why would you respond that way? And so I invite you in this conversation and just in general for you to be honest together, honest with your hesitancy, with your fears even, as well as with your excitement. I'm excited about this. I'm hopeful about this. And so please also, if you have any questions, talk to your community group leader about those things, and you're welcome to contact me as well. And so I love you guys. I think about you often. I appreciate your time, and I'll be praying for you.